Water is one of the best types in competitive Pokemon, and this has been true since the very beginning. No matter what competitive format you're playing, water types will surely be present. Water types are excellent defensively, with only two weaknesses to electric and grass, types that are pretty easy to defend against with teammates. Because of this, water types have no trouble slotting into teams and complementing your defensive core. Water types are also great offensively, hitting three types super effectively, and threatening most of the game neutrally. They also benefit from the weather effect of rain, which further enhances their damage output. Water types also just tend to be blessed with great move pools and some of the strongest options that Pokemon has to offer. Let's take a look at what may be competitive Pokemon's most consistent type, and relevant examples of water types in every generation of OU. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to assist Makago, who has recently transformed into a horse and joined the mysterious Horse Council. Makago is very nervous that fellow council member and water-type Pokemon Horsey will utilize a water-type attack against him, instantly vaporizing him. This would advance Horsey's political position. Click the subscribe button immediately to ensure that this never happens. Thank you. In Generation 1, 3 water types are ranked in OU, which may not sound like much, but considering the very small pool of Pokemon back then, I think it's quite significant. They're tied with Normal type, also having 3 OU ranked Pokemon to their name, and the best water type in the game, by quite a significant margin, is definitely Starmie. This Pokemon has an extremely blessed move pool in Gen 1 with Recover for immediate healing, making it one of the most effective defensive walls in the generation. Thunder Wave, a very powerful effect in every generation, but especially in Gen 1 where there is no abilities or that many mechanics to play around status. Blizzard is also incredible in Gen 1, 120 power with 90 accuracy. Was nerfed later to only have 70 accuracy. Also has Ice Beam if you prefer higher PP to fish for freeze chances against certain targets. Starmie is one of the best Pokemon at fishing for freezes against such fellows as Chansey. Surf for water type stab is also a perfectly viable option. Bit more damage than Ice Beam. Doesn't have the freeze effect, but also has even more PP and threatens Rhydon and other such targets harder than ice moves can. Psychic, also a great option with stab boost on it. 1 in 3 chance to lower the target's special by 1. This is one of the best moves in the game as well. And you have solid enough stats to support this excellent move pool too. In Gen 1, water type is pretty useful defensively, most notably for resisting ice, which is a very common attacking type that is everywhere, Blizzard and Ice being such powerful moves. Unfortunately, unlike ice types, you are not immune to freeze, but sometimes Starmie will get paralyzed on purpose just so that it can't be frozen, and it can take advantage of that ice resistance more effectively. Starmie is the 4th best Pokemon in Gen 1 OU outright, right behind the 3 normal type kings, Tauros, Snorlax, and Chansey. It eventually overtook Exeggutor for the number 4 spot after many years, proving itself as a very consistent and popular choice among Gen 1's best players. Yet another powerful water type in Generation 1 that is commonly seen in high level play is Cloyster. Famously has a monstrous defense stat of base 180, making it pretty nice into Snorlax and Tauros, the popular physical attackers. Has access to Clamp, which has a stab boost on it, a nice water type trapping move, similar vein to Wrap, prevents the target from moving. Not only can this chip targets down and prevent them from doing stuff, it can also enable free switches. You clamp something, they're unable to act, and you can freely switch anything you want onto the field. Nice to get a threat like Zapdos or Moltres or something that wants a free turn of entry onto the field, kind of like a mini U-turn. Cloyster usually doesn't use a move like Surf, kind of a waste of a move slot, since it needs the following options a little bit more: Blizzard, Rest, and Explosion. Explosion allows Cloyster to trade once its health is getting low. That is a very useful tool. Blizzard, obviously outstanding, we've been through this. And Rest gives it another path, maybe you want to heal it up. Takes a lot of turns of commitment sitting there sleeping, but sometimes you can get even more out of your Cloyster by healing it all the way back to fruition. Some Tauros have started to adapt to Cloyster, with Thunderbolt as a flex option replacing either Earthquake or Blizzard. Tauros doesn't have the highest special stat in the world, so it's not going to do too much damage. It's not going to one-hit KO the guy or anything, but it still can catch it coming in and chip it significantly, making it a bit more difficult to wall Tauros. That is the one downside of water typing in Gen 1. While ice resistance is nice, electric weakness can be an exploitable point. Grass weakness doesn't really matter, there's no good grass moves, but there are good electric moves, and a lot of Pokemon learn Thunderbolt, so that can be a point of exploitation for the water type. Slowbro also exists as a Gen 1 water type, ranked in OU. Slowbro is noteworthy as an Amnesia sweeper. Amnesia, one of the best moves in Gen 1, raising your special stat by 2, and of course the special stat represents both special attack and defense combined into one, so it's basically like Calm Minding up twice. It is extremely powerful, and Slowbro can take advantage of this and use it to be a monstrous late-game cleaner. And it has solid offensive coverage options too at its disposal with Ice Beam, and I believe, yeah, it gets Psychic Stab too, which can come in handy. I believe that Slowbro has been on a bit of a downtrend over time in the modern metagame because it is an exploitable strategy. You can crit through the defensive boosts, and it needs a lot of turns to ramp up. Rest is very exploitable because it requires 3 turns to wake up, because the turn that you wake up you also can't act. Sometimes it's in these unfortunate loops where it has to keep resting, and the other player can safely fish for critical hits, eventually landing one and breaking through it. But on the right team it can still be a very effective win condition, still a solid member of the format that you have to watch out for. Lapras is in UUBL. I believe it used to be ranked OU and dropped down, but a solid Pokemon. It's similar to Cloyster, has a similar type profile of water ice, and it's bulky, has a high HP, reasonable defense and special. Lapras sets itself apart from Cloyster with some different options. It's a bit faster and it has more threatening Blizzard. It hits harder with Blizzard. It has access to Thunderbolt. It's got that classic Bolt Beam coverage. You can also run Surf if you want. And it has Hyper Beam, allowing it to finish stuff off if it's low, and Confuse Ray I think I've seen as well, which is pretty good in Gen 1, especially against all the paralyzed targets that probably exist. Can be effective against Snorlax, who hits itself pretty hard in Confusion, and stuff like that. And Sing. Sleep is really powerful, and this is a bulkier sleep user. Even though Sing is inaccurate, you have many opportunities to come in and fish for the hit, and that may eventually land and give you a bit of an advantage. So Lapras has some genuine merit. It's still seen in tournaments. While Cloyster is more popular, Lapras does have some unique traits of its own. Kingler exists and is pretty funny. This is the hardest hitting Pokemon with access to both Swords Dance and Hyper Beam. Has a really high base 130 attack and solid speed as well. Can actually be an okay physical sweeper sometimes. This Pokemon kind of wishes it was a normal type. If this was a normal type, it would probably be top tier. Unfortunately, it's a water type, which is a good type overall, but not a great fit on Kingler in Gen 1. It has Crabhammer for mixed coverage with a high crit rates, but 50 special, I mean, come on, that's not the best. This Pokemon is better than it looks. It's actually alright. Kind of a meme, but also it can work surprisingly well. And shout out to Golduck. I've always been a fan of Golduck. I saw this in a Reverend video. I don't think it's that good, but it does have higher speed than Slowbro and Amnesia and pretty good move pool. It's good counter, that's fun. You could catch a Snorlax clicking Body Slam against you. Simply don't get paralyzed, it won't happen. You're the duck, you don't get affected by such things. In Gen 1, the inherent power of water type isn't that great yet. The resistances don't come into play that much, but it's also not bad, which is the most important thing, and it's an example where many of the water types in Gen 1 happen to be blessed with the best options the game has to offer, like Starmie having every advantage ever, and Cloyster just having really high defense, access to Explosion and Blizzard and such things. In Gen 2, there are now 4 OU ranked water types. Water type stock is rising, and the greatest benefactor was absolutely Cloyster, who skyrocketed in viability. Was already great in Gen 1, but now it is a S-tier Pokemon. Cloyster gained 2 of the most important new options in Gen 2, Spikes and Rapid Spin. Spikes being the first ever entry hazard in the franchise, which can only have 1 layer in Gen 1, but deals 12.5% damage to every grounded foe that switches in, having a massive impact on the remainder of the game, and being one of the premier ways to make progress. Cloyster is the best spiker in the game, and the best rapid spinner as well, a move that removes hazards, another imperative thing to have on a team. On top of this, it is a fantastic defensive wall. Since Cloyster stock has also risen, checking Cloyster is one of the most imperative things in the world, and Cloyster is great at it. Next to its high defense, Toxic, which puts Snorlax on a clock, forcing it to rest usually, and even Explosion, which can just eliminate Snorlax sometimes. Ground types are also on the rise in this generation, with Golem becoming a lot better, Rhydon remaining a relevant presence, and Nidoking also on the rise. While Nidoking does threaten electric type damage against Cloyster, just having Surf feels a bit stronger here in this generation. It's also worth noting that Steel types exist, and while Steel resists like almost every type known to mankind, it doesn't resist Water. And moving forward, that would be one of the best traits of Water. The fact that it's just neutral against Steel, while most other types cannot hit Steel types very well. Water types can. Starmie may not be as powerful as it was in Gen 1, but it has maintained its relevance here in Gen 2 as a solid, bulky Water type in the OU metagame. It's high speed, access to Recover, which is very nice. That sets it apart from Cloyster. It may not have spikes like Cloyster does, but it does have reliable healing. It has speed. It actually poses a bit of a threat with a solid special attack stat of its own. And of course, Rapid Spin, an option that would come to define Starmie's role in the future. A more offensively oriented Rapid Spinner with high speed that can actually deal a bit of damage. That will be an imperative role for Starmie to fill for years to come. Suicune made its debut in Generation 2, and while Raikou is the king of the legendary beast trio of Gen 2, Suicune is the runner-up, and it is a solid Pokemon. Mono water typing, pretty good defensive. Does suffer from that electric weakness, which is more of a problem now that Raikou and Zapdos are everywhere, but against just about everything else, a fantastic defensive wall. And one of the hardest things to break through in this game, with Rest Talk being such a powerful combination in this generation, Suicune can perform very well on more defensive teams in Generation 2. Vaporeon was released in Gen 1, but back then it wasn't really a relevant presence, mostly because the majority of water types in Gen 1 are just outclassed by Starmie. But now Vaporeon has a bit more to show for itself. It is one of the few water types with access to an actual boosting move, Growth, which doesn't look like much by modern standards, but back in Gen 2, having a way to boost your special attack was rare. Just a single stat boost. And this has a similar role to Suicune, but it actually poses a threat in the end game because it can be a win condition by boosting its special attack and breaking through everything. You can set up for a Vaporeon win condition. You probably have to eliminate the electric types. You probably have to do a lot of setup to pave the way for Vaporeon, but it represents that late game threat, and that is important. As for non-OU water types that have some sort of presence, I think Kingdra's worth mentioning. Not the best stats-wise, pretty average, but notably has the water dragon typing, which in general is excellent, only being weak to Dragon and later Fairy when that would release. But in Gen 2, there's barely any Dragon type attacks ever. So Kingdra basically is neutral to everything at least. Notably, it's a water type that is neutral to electric and grass, which is actually very valuable. Can operate similarly to Suicune, sacrificing, bulk in the form of stats for bulk in the form of typing. And it has Dragon Breath, which can spread paralysis. So that's something. I don't think Kingdra is the best, but definitely decent and worth noting. Tentacruel is worth noting as well. UUBL ranked in Gen 2. Back in Gen 1 it did exist, but wasn't very good. Poison typing in Gen 1 is an active detriment basically, because Psychics are everywhere and they run the show. But in Gen 2, not as much of a problem. Psychic type's not nearly as dominant, and Poison typing actually kind of useful defensively, granting an immunity to the Poison status, which is more prevalent now, and Fighting types. Most notably, Tentacruel has a pretty nice matchup into both of the popular Rapid Spinners, Cloyster and Forretress. It's immune to their Toxic, it has Rapid Spin itself, and a set like this can actually set up against them. Substitute against them, spam Swords Dance, and Steel types do exist now, making Poison worse offensively. Hydro Pump, off the back of a decent special attack stat, actually a pretty nice way to threaten much of the Steel types in the Gen 2 metagame, especially Steelix. Skarmory takes a decent amount from Hydro Pump. So this set can be okay. It's a bit of a gimmick, and it relies on specific Rapid Spinners. Cloyster and Forretress are the most popular, but sometimes their Rapid Spinner is like Starmie, and then you're boned. But this is something. It could be a good counter pick against a certain tournament opponent or something, perhaps. And folks, my apologies. I almost forgot about Quagsire, who is a UU ranked Pokemon, but viable in OU in Gen 2. Pretty cool, actually. The first ever water ground type, which is famously one of the best type combinations in the series. Water cancelling out ground's weakness to ice and grass, and ground granting an immunity to electric. Very complementary. With only one weakness to grass, which is easy to cover with teammates, Quagsire can switch in against Raikou and Zapdos, and you can turn that into an opportunity for a win with Belly Drum and Ground and Rock coverage. Hidden Power Grass is not that common in Gen 2. In fact, it's rarely used ever, because the most popular ground types to cover for Zapdos and Raikou are Nidoking and Rhydon, so you only ever really see Hidden Power Water or Hidden Power Ice. You never really see Hidden Power Grass, making Quagsire a good fit. Gen 3 water types are starting to get pretty crazy with 6 OU ranked water types, and one of the best Pokemon in the whole game is a water type. Swampert, a top tier defensive Pokemon in Gen 3. Also a water ground type, but Swampert would propel the water ground type to new heights never before seen. Swampert is an all-purpose check to like 20 different things in Gen 3 OU. Handles Dragon Dance Tyranitar, or any physical Tyranitar set. Handles Aerodactyl. Handles physical Salamence, Metagross, and pretty much any miscellaneous other physical attacker it can at least help against, if not defeat outright. Thanks to its ground typing, it is immune to Sandstorm, granting it an avenue to chip heal with leftovers, giving it much more longevity than many other similar Pokemon. And it has a vast set variety. It can be a defensive Pokemon with coverage options, as you see here, to hit all the things it needs to, like Ice Beam for Salamence, Earthquake for decent damage against Blissey, accurate option versus Tyranitar, Hydro Pump for Tyranitar/Aero, or you could go full-on defensive. You go Surf, Toxic, Refresh. Refresh grants a way to heal status. You can run Roar to help you against boost sweepers, enhance a spike strategy, phase things out. Or you can go offensive Swampert. It also learns Focus Punch, which can really catch incoming Snorlax or Blissey off guard. Can catch Blissey as it's healing or toxicking you. Swampert can also run an Endeavor set. Swampert is sand immune, so it can afford to use a Slackberry to boost its speed, not worried about getting chipped by Sandstorm. It can substitute down to 1 health, consuming that Speed Berry, and using Endeavor against the enemy, bringing your opponent's Pokemon to 1 HP. And thanks to your Slackberry boost, you can probably outrun and KO whatever the enemy's Pokemon is. Fantastic option on hyper offense teams that want some sort of thing that can come in defensively sometimes. Swampert is inherently good defensively because of its typing. That also generates offense, trades with enemies, and keeps momentum up. So that's a great option. And Swampert is very customizable too. You've seen options like Hidden Power Bug and Rock Slide as flex slots for certain matchups. You can run Focus Punch on a defensive Swampert just to help against Blissey. You can run Refresh on like Earthquake, Ice Beam Swampert if you have Magneton, so you don't really need Hydro Pump as much. You can even run Curse Swampert and use it as a win condition, or as a way to 1v1 a Sleeping Suicune. Very versatile Pokemon. Lovely Pokemon as well. One of my favorite Pokemon ever. It feels very healthy. What's nice about it is that it can't really heal infinitely. It is prone to being chipped down by spikes, and it doesn't have Recover or Regenerator or anything like that. It can't wall everything forever. It can wall a lot of different stuff, but it can get worn down and broken through. It's also vulnerable to Grass, which is a way to target it and defeat it. So I think it is a very healthy presence, and I've always said that Swampert is a great blueprint for how I think defensive Pokemon should be designed, with a lot of advantages but also exploitable flaws, and also set variety is important to me too. Offensive, defensive, a lot of options. Feels cool to play with because you can tweak it to your team and use it however you want, fit your own personal playstyle. And fun to play against because, you know, it doesn't feel like it's living forever and evading everything and, you know, being a annoying guy. It is defeatable. Suicune became the new best of the Legendary Beast trio in Generation 3, receiving a significant buff in the form of Calm Mind. And the ability Pressure. They all got Pressure, but Suicune is the best at taking advantage of this ability because of its fantastic bulk. Pressure makes the enemy consume twice as much PP when they hit you with stuff. Suicune is one of the most effective win conditions in Gen 3 OU with Calm Mind. Water typing is particularly good defensively in Gen 3 because Electric and Grass types, your only two weaknesses, can only be special. And since you can boost your special defense, you eventually snowball to a point where you can shrug off all of your weaknesses. And being so physically bulky, especially with defensive EVs, to invest in even more. Suicune can famously be difficult to eliminate. That being said, it takes a while to ramp up. It can be responded to by a lot of different stuff. Celebi, Zapdos, Blissey. Spikes and Sand punish Suicune a lot. In the early game, it is mostly a defensive Pokemon. It comes in on fire types or mixed attackers, forces them out by the threat of Calm Mind. But in the late game, it becomes a real monster. Pressure becomes a factor against things like Blissey. You really start to ramp up, especially if you've eliminated key enemies. And Suicune can also be a more offensive Pokemon. You can invest in special attack and speed, run Hydro Pump for more damage. Some sets even run Salackberry and lead with the Suicune just to sometimes lure in Blissey for a Dugtrio follow-up, or just cause as much damage as they possibly can early. And it's a really effective aggressive lead on the right team. Substitute Suicune is also very good because a max health Suicune substitute evades the Seismic Toss damage from Blissey. Since you can hit 101 health substitutes, Seismic Toss will deal 100 damage, and you can maintain a substitute for one extra turn, allowing you to sometimes 1v1 Blissey that way. A Suicune behind a substitute can also snowball very quickly in the right matchup. Famously a noob killer, they call it, because a lot of new players, they let Suicune ramp up, they don't understand the situation, and Suicune steamrolls them. Definitely a Pokemon you have to respond to very quickly, that you need a little bit of hands-on experience playing against it to understand it, and to understand how to beat it. But no doubt a powerful threat, and one of the key defensive Pokemon of the metagame. Starmie once again maintaining its relevance. Starmie is excellent in Gen 3, can be both offensive and defensive here. With EVs, customization came into play, and you could choose whether to go offensive, defensive, or a mix of both, or whatever. So Starmie is one of the prime benefactors of such a mechanic with its set variety. Starmie gained Natural Cure, which is a great new boon. A fantastic ability curing status whenever you switch out. It is fast. It can hit with max speed investment 361, outrunning Gengar, outrunning sometimes Tyranitar after they Dragon Dance even. A Tyranitar needs to be jolly max speed to outrun Starmie after Dragon Dance. And that's a lot to invest in. Not every Tyranitar can afford to do that. So Starmie is a very effective threat. That Stab Hydro Pump destroys Tyranitar. Ice Beam and Thunderbolt are such good coverage. You hit Salamence, Flygon. Thunderbolt hits Gyarados, enemy water types. Sometimes you can even say F Rapid Spin, just run Recover and 3 attacks. Or 4 attacks, Psychic. You can just bluff Rapid Spin and just go full on offensive Starmie. Can be good on special offense actually. So Starmie can fit on Spikes teams as kind of an anti-spike measure yourself with the Rapid Spin, and a threat that can abuse spikes thanks to all its coverage and its high speed. Or it can be a special offense Pokemon with something like this, or with the Recover set. And defensive Starmie exists too, with Recover and Thunder Wave. This is where Natural Cure becomes a lot more relevant. This can be quite effective against Blissey. It's great against fire types and mixed attackers who get very crippled by Thunder Wave. And it has a lot more longevity than the offensive set, obviously, meaning you can come in and Rapid Spin repeatedly throughout a game, which can totally shut down certain teams. Popular choice on Paraspam teams because of its effectiveness, spreading paralysis against the enemy and also serving you by Rapid Spinning away those pesky spikes. And this kind of Starmie has a lot of different ways you can EV it. You can hit this speed benchmark, which just outruns Gengar, and you dump the rest in health with a little bit of special attack for the road. But you can also just creep down to 300, outrunning the 299 speed Pokemon like Salamence and Flygon and whatnot that are base 100, max speed but not plus nature. They hit 299, so you can just hit that speed benchmark, dump the rest in defense, be sturdier against those physical attackers, or you can just go bold. Bold nature, more defense. And what benchmark do you want? 270 outruns Heracross, 280 outruns Moltres, Modest. A very customizable EV-wise defensive Starmie. Milotic is one of the most infamous defensive Pokemon in the format. A mono water type that is just a solid blob of defensive stats. It's got Recover, it's got Toxic to pressure things, and it's got Refresh to heal its own status. Great defensive ability too, Marvel Scale. Whenever it's status, it has a 1.5 times defense boost. So sometimes getting statused on purpose on Milotic can be advantageous. This is the biggest mixed attacker counter in the format. Mixed attackers are pretty common in Gen 3. They hit Skarmory, Blissey, Swampert all in one with fire, fighting, grass coverage, but with non-stab, weak grass move in Hidden Power, you're not doing anything to Milotic, especially with its high special defense. So Milotic totally shuts down them. It shuts down fire types. There is some set variety on Milotic. You can go like Mirror Coat to take a Thunderbolt and then just surprise KO, zap those Starmie or Gengar or something. You can go Hypnosis to give Milotic a little bit more momentum, putting something to sleep, generating free turns for a teammate. Actually quite a good option. Most sets will look like this. Definitely a staple of stall teams. Good on physical offense teams too, because it complements Celebi and benefits from Skarm's removal, since it doesn't like spikes. Milotic's downfall is that it's very passive. It is one of the most passive Pokemon in this whole format. Something like Substitute Carmine Jirachi can just destroy Milotic and use it as an avenue to win. It's also very vulnerable to Sandstorm, cutting its leftovers healing, and they sometimes call Milotic the Hacks Magnet. This is a Pokemon that that has to recover loop a lot against certain targets, and that can be exploited by, eventually a critical hit will happen or a secondary effect will happen. Famously, Melodic is prone to getting flinched by Rock Slide. Sometimes you'd think Melodic would be really good against Tyranitar with its high defense and super effective Surf, but sometimes it's the opposite. Melodic is kind of bad against Tyranitar because it's not healing with leftovers enough. Tyranitar can be surprisingly bulky, Melodic doesn't hit that hard, and eventually if Melodic keeps recovering, a flinch is going to happen. It just will. So Melodic is definitely very exploitable in that sense. It can sometimes be annoying to face and really punish specific matchups, but also I think this is one of those cases where you can see how Sand has a positive impact on things by punishing passive Pokemon like this and preventing them from being too difficult to deal with. Gyarados has existed since Gen 1, but it finally became good in Gen 3 once it received this move right here, Dragon Dance, which breathed new life into many Pokemon. Raises your attack and speed by 1, of course. Gyarados is mostly outclassed by fellow Dragon Dancer Salamence, who hits harder, is faster, has more coverage, but Gyarados has advantages over Salamence. And the biggest advantage it has is its water typing. Water flying is notably neutral to ice. While Salamence is extremely threatened by ice-type attacks, and, Blissey can hit it with Ice Beam, Swampert obviously can, Gengar can hit it with Ice Punch, Gyarados is not worried whatsoever about ice moves. It can shrug them off. So Gyarados is a Dragon Dancer that can actually hold its own pretty well against Swampert, which is very important. Gyarados also has access to Thunder Wave, which might not seem like a good fit on a boost sweeper. You don't want utility options here, right? You want attacks, but Thunder Wave can punish a lot of Gyarados' common switch-ins. Swampert is not really going to handle Gyarados, and in fact, Gyarados can take advantage of Swampert. So things that commonly come in against Gyarados are Zapdos, who resists flying, resists ground, is immune to ground, sorry. But Thunder Wave totally cripples Zapdos, destroys it. Gengar can come in against Gyarados, live a hit from +1 and Thunderbolts to KO Gyarados. Thunder Wave destroys Gengar too. So the usual things that, a Salamence would invite in, like a Swampert or a Melodic or a Suicune, Gyarados is more effective against them. The stuff that Gyarados invites in are more prone to being crippled by status. You can also Double Edge Zapdos or something to chip it down into range of a Dragon Dance plus Double Edge later. That's another way to go. Gyarados has a bit of an unfortunate situation though, because its speed is such that +1 Dragon Dance is not faster than Aerodactyl. So Gyarados has some problems against Aerodactyl. To outrun Aerodactyl, you need a Jolly Nature and max speed, almost max speed, which sacrifices a lot of your damage output when you're not having an adamant nature. And on top of that, you don't get Rock Slide like Salamence does. So you have to run Hidden Power Rock, which means you can't run Hidden Power Flying anymore, which is your main source of damage, that stab move. Hidden Power Rock Earthquake Gyarados can be a good set, and it can catch Aerodactyl off guard. A lot of Aerodactyls come straight in against Gyarados and can get just one hit KO'd by this, which is cool. And another great option Gyarados has access to is Taunt, which can help. Sometimes you can 1v1 Skarmory with this. You can 1v1 defensive Starmie. They can't Thunder Wave you. You can even defeat Suicunes trying to rest and stuff like that. Taunt can disrupt a lot of stuff that thinks it can beat you, but then suddenly gets caught off guard. I really enjoy using Gyarados. It feels like an interesting alternative to Salamence with a lot more to offer than you would expect. And Cloyster in Gen 3 is the worst of the OU ranked water types. Definitely a big fall off from Gen 2, even Gen 1. Has a lot of competition now that Skarmory Lone Spikes. Forretress also outdoes Cloyster most of the time as a spiker plus rapid spinner. Cloyster has the benefit of being pretty nice into water types compared to other spikers. It can switch in on Swampert. It has high defense, shrugs off the water and ice type moves, and can use that as a way to find opportunities to set its layers. It also has rapid spin, so you can spike in the face of Skarmory, rapid spin, and then explode as an aggressive spiker. Cloyster is more aggressively paced than Skarmory or Forretress, who are more defensive and want to stick around for a long time, but Cloyster really suffered from the presence of sand and spikes. Skarmory is immune to sand and spikes, so it tends to be the most desirable spiker in the game. A lot of people think Cloyster should actually be ranked in UUBL. This is an outdated ranking. And I gotta be honest, folks, I can't talk about every single fringe viable water type in Gen 3 because there's simply too many. There are so many water types in the game and they all got like unique abilities and stuff, so there's actually a lot with niche value. But I'll talk about some of the big ones. Kingdra is probably the main one you will see. It is a great Pokemon and the most effective Swift Swim user in the game. Double speed in the rain. This can be a great Pokemon on special offense. Special offense teams can suffer from low speed Pokemon, but Kingdra remedies this defense, and it helps it against enemy offense matchups by punishing Aerodactyl. Really thrives when Blissey is eliminated, so works well alongside Dugtrio, who can trap and eliminate Blissey. Also loves receiving Carmine boost from Celebi. A Carmine boosted Kingdra is an absolute monster, and helps you out defensively too. Water Dragon typing being so good can help you as a backup check to like a physical Salamence or even Gyarados if you're running Hidden Power Electric, which I really enjoy as a coverage option on it. Ludicolo is the other popular alternative. It has its advantages. As a grass type, it resists ground, which is nice. It can come in on Swampert way better. It can spread Leech Seed in the mid game, giving it more mid game value than Kingdra, and immunity to Leech Seed is also worthwhile. What sucks about Ludicolo though is it is weak to flying, meaning it can't check Salamence like Kingdra can, but on some teams Ludicolo is a better fit than Kingdra. Mantine is fun. Mantine has Water Absorb on it, meaning it's immune to water, so it's a cool anti-Suicune Pokemon. Sometimes Suicune only uses Surf as its only attack. Carmine, Rest, Sleep, Talk, Surf. Mantine totally counters that set. It can't be touched by Suicune, which is fun. Mantine is also Spike immune and has an enormous special defense stat. It's really good against Swampert too, and it's generally alright against a few different special attackers like Celebi. What sucks about Mantine though is that it's really bad for a specially defensive Pokemon to be weak to Electric. Electric coverage is on almost every special attacker, obviously Zapdos, but Starmie, Gengar all have electric coverage, so sucks for Mantine, but can work on certain teams, can be fun. Vaporeon is a pretty fun Pokemon in Gen 3 as well. It also has Water Absorb, which gives it some defensive value. It's got great stats. It has a rough experience compared to Melodic, who is generally a better mono water defensive Pokemon, just because it has Recover and Refresh. Vaporeon can have Move Slot Syndrome, where as a defensive Pokemon, its only form of healing is Wish, so it kind of wants Wish Protect to reliably heal. Then it can't really fit Toxic, or it's vulnerable to status, doesn't have Refresh. Kind of wants to have Sub Baton Pass too, but you can't fit Sub Baton Pass Wish Protect, because then you have no attacks. The Vaporeon has serious Move Slot Syndrome, but one of the most effective ways to use Vaporeon is as a hyper-offensive lead, because it actually can live a Zapdos Thunderbolt with this particular EV spread on the screen here. You Ice Beam them, and then you eat this Select Berry, gaining speed, and then you outrun them. So you can turn the tables on a Zapdos lead if they foolishly Thunderbolt into you, EV'd to counter this specific thing. And you can also Baton Pass the speed boost from the berry to a teammate, keeping up that momentum. Another alternative is Sub Pass against Blissey, as you make 101 health sub, and you can pass that to a teammate who will not be broken by Seismic Toss. A very dynamic offensive lead, and obviously has good matchups against Tyranitar, who just 1 hits with Hydro Pump, and Metagross, who 2 hits with Hydro Pump. Salamence, 1 hit with Ice Beam. Cool Pokemon. In Gen 4, we got 6 OU ranked water types once again, and 2 that are OU by technicality. That's a bit of a quirk, folks. Gen 4 was the first Smogon format with usage-based tiering, so because of that, it's frozen in time. Some Pokemon are OU ranked because back when Gen 4 was current, they were OU ranked by usage. Now the metagame has developed a lot, and they're not actually that good. They're probably not representative of what people use, but they're still OU by technicality. So technically there's 8 OU ranked water types, but Tentacruel and Vaporeon, not the best in the modern metagame. One thing's for sure, one of the greatest benefactors of Gen 4's physical special split was Gyarados, who now became one of the scariest Pokemon in the entire game. With Waterfall as physical water stab it could finally use, Gyarados became significantly more powerful. It also benefited from so many of the new items. Life Orb is a classic one, just to enhance your damage, attack everything, but also the type berries. Wakan Berry is a popular choice, halving damage from an incoming electric type attack. So you can shrug off an incoming Thunderbolt, Dragon Dance up, defeat various things. Gyarados also got more coverage options like Ice Fang, which previously would have only been a special attack, now it can be a physical attack. Stone Edge is a new move. Gyarados used to not get any rock move, now it gets this powerful rock move. Don't worry about the accuracy. It'll hit, you'll be fine. And Double Edge and Taunt are still valid options too, that come into play frequently. Kingdra got promoted in Generation 4 from UUBL to OU rank. Kingdra can now be both a special attacker and a physical attacker. Water Dragon could both have physical attacks now, and with Waterfall and Outrage, Kingdra is a really good Dragon Dance sweeper. One of my favorites to use, in fact. One of my favorite sets on it is actually Chesto Berry with Rest. You can Dragon Dance up, heal all the way back, and then defeat everything with Outrage. And of course, it could still be an effective special attacker, and it even has Draco Meteor now, the new absurdly powerful Dragon-type special attack, which has 140 power. Got nerfed later. But back when it first came out, this move was absurd. Kingdra can do this and abuse Rain. A common strategy is Rain Dance Bronzong with Damp Rock. To have 8 turns of Rain, you explode, and then you go Kingdra, and it's lights out. Kingdra definitely benefited majorly from Gen 4 mechanical shifts. Empoleon is an all-new water type, the starter Pokemon for Generation 4, and it is excellent. A great lead with Focus Sash, a new item, which leaves you with 1 HP if you would get one hit carried from full. This guy can run Stealth Rock on it, and it's one of the best Stealth Rock setting leads because it also poses a threat offensively and can defeat fellas like Azelf and Aerodactyl, who try to taunt you and be pesky and annoying. Empoleon can also be a sweeper with agility. You run agility Empoleon, and with a solid special attack and a great offensive move pool, this can clean up in an endgame. Sometimes you can even run a Pitaya Berry, which boosts your special attack by 1, and Substitute to bring yourself all the way down to Torrent range, boosting your water type damage and consuming your berry, turning Empoleon into an absolute monster. And this is very effective because you're also steel type, meaning you're immune to Sandstorm. Starmie is still here doing its thing. Works pretty similarly to how it does in Gen 3, to be honest. Very similar offensive and defensive sets, as you can see. Does have choice specs as a new option if you want to go full on aggressive, and trick, which can give your choice specs to the enemy, disabling them if they're a defensive Pokemon. One cool tool that Starmie has up its sleeves now is the type berries. You can use Kolba Berry and shrug off an incoming Crunch from Tyranitar, actually enabling Starmie to defeat Tyranitar 1v1 if it is using such an item. Suicune has definitely become a way more aggressive Pokemon in the Gen 4 metagame. Those rest sets are a bit harder to use and a bit more exploitable now with the power level raising overall. High power moves like Close Combat and Draco Meteor now existing. More Pokemon having access to Stab. So Suicune sitting there resting and Carminding up. Not as viable of a strategy, but more aggressive sets on Suicune are still seeing success. And the defensive sets can work if you have the right support for them. I do feel Suicune is not quite the menace that it was in Gen 3. Still OU viable though, and a relevant presence. And Swampert, still a great choice thanks to its Water Ground typing. But has more physical attacking options now. In fact, physical attacking options are more popular on it, with Waterfall and Ice Punch, providing the same coverage that you would get from special attacks back in Gen 3. You can go full-on physical Swampert. Also gets Stealth Rock now, which is huge. That's the best new move. Swampert was in some ways buffed. It doesn't feel as powerful as it does in Gen 3 relative to the rest of the metagame, but it was definitely buffed in terms of its options it can take advantage of now. In Generation 5, there might be more viable water types in OU than ever. There's 7 ranked in OU, not including Keldeo Resolute, who is identical to Keldeo. But even some of the lower tier fellas, seen occasionally, are viable choice, and it's all because of one particular water type. They say a rising tide assists all ships or something like that. That's not how that goes, but something along those lines. Politoed got access to Drizzle, which sets permanent rain on the field, which was a dream come true for the entire water type, including Politoed itself, who is no slouch, setting water on the field. And it also has fantastic utility, making it more useful than just that, with Scald, boosted by its own rain, dishing out impressive damage, spreading burn. It's got Encore, which can help you out against boost sweepers like Runiclus. It's got Refresh if you want to be okay versus Hazard. You can also run stuff like Toxic, pressure enemies, or Ice Beam to hit Dragonite or Garchomp. Toxic is a good one because it hits incoming Jellicent or Gastrodon, which would otherwise wall you completely. That's a way to get one over on those fellas. The presence of permanent rain is one of the most defining aspects of Gen 5. And one of the greatest benefactors was, of course, Keldeo, a truly outstanding Pokemon in the Gen 5 metagame, and one of the premier rain abusers. Doesn't even really need rain to be good. Water fighting, solid typing, has Secret Sword, a fantastic signature move that damages based on defense. This move alone basically made Blissey about 1,000 times worse. And Keldeo has a decent amount of set variety. You can go Choice Scarf, Leftovers Attacker, Calm Mind, Toxic Protect. This is a better set on Sand because this applies a lot of pressure with Sand chip damage, spreading status. You can Protect to rack up more residual damage. But the damage output that Keldeo can achieve in Rain with a choice specs is truly absurd. You can 2-hit resists. It's one of the most powerful breakers in this entire format. Tentacruel, also a fantastic rain abuser with Rain Dish, which grants an extra leftovers heal in the rain basic. The amount of chip healing you can achieve with Tentacruel is insane, and this is one of the most reliable rapid spinners there is in Gen 5 OU. Something else you can do on this is run Substitute to actually protect yourself from the enemy Tentacruel. With Substitute, you shield yourself from getting Scald Burned, and you can Scald Burn them. It's quite a clown fiesta, but that's a valid strategy. In Generation 5, Rotom was converted from an Electric Ghost type into various different types depending on the form. Rotom Wash being chief among them as the competitive king moving forward. Rotom Wash is an excellent competitive Pokemon. Levitate, Electric Water, is just outstanding typing with only a single weakness to Grass. Doesn't even necessarily need to be used on rain teams. Fits on many different teams. Solid versus Landorus, Therian, and Garchomp. Garchomp. Generally quite effective against most physical attackers. Access to Will-O-Wisp helps a lot, and pivoting to keep up momentum. It's a really excellent Pokemon, giving you both defense and offense in one, especially because it hits pretty hard with Hydro Pump too. I love a defensive Pokemon that can also generate some momentum. It's not completely passive. And Rotom Wash doesn't really have reliable healing, just Pain Split is the main healing option on this, which obviously not as good as something like Recover, but the access to pivoting, the ability to cripple things with Will-O-Wisp and actually dish out some damage with Hydro Pump makes Rotom Wash very effective. Starmie, the absolute star of the water type, ranked OU in another generation. That's 5 in a row for Starmie. Has a new ability now, Analytic, making it much more effective offensively. This grants moves 1.3 times power if you are the last to move in a turn, which doesn't sound good on such a fast Pokemon, but this also applies if the enemy switches out. So Starmie basically gets a damage boost on anything switching in to tank its hit. This is actually more popular than Natural Cure in Gen 5's fast-paced metagame, and Starmie's main benefit over something like Tentacruel or Excadrill, more solid defensive spinners, is its high speed and wide coverage once again. You can also take advantage of the new item Air Balloon in order to pivot in on something like an Excadrill, or a Landorus Theory, or a Garchomp. Not only pose a threat, but Rapid Spin, which can support allies like Volcarona or Dragonite who don't enjoy Stealth Rock. Starmie is a pretty reliable spinner in that sense. Although it won't stick around for long, it can spin reliably once, pretty much. And that is the key to Starmie. And on hyper-offensive teams, that's all you need. You just need to spin, enable the switch to Volcarona a single time, and it's often lights out. But even in matchups where you don't need to spin, Starmie can sometimes be your most powerful threat. You can even use it on aggro rain teams with Thunder, which of course gets buffed in the rain. Jellicent is an all-new Pokemon in Gen 5, and it is a pretty nice anti-rain Pokemon thanks to its access to Water Absorb, which is a much more useful ability now. But Jellicent is cool as well because it's a ghost type, meaning it can block Rapid Spin. This is still a world where Defog doesn't exist, so that is really valuable. Despite not having fantastic stats, just hitting those two important check marks gives Jellicent a valuable role, and it has really good defensive move pool on top of that with Recover, Will-O-Wisp. You can run Scald instead as a way to burn enemies. Taunt is a great option on this too, to disable, you can prevent Ferrothorn from spiking up, prevent things from refreshing away your Will-O-Wisp like a Politoed or such things. I've even seen some people run Air Balloon on this just to give it more ways to hit the field. One of my favorite Pokemon in Gen 5. I like that this is such a good choice in Gen 5. It's a cool Pokemon design. I love the typing, and it's viable because its traits happen to fit well in the metagame rather than being so powerful inherently itself. It's actually quite a weak Pokemon if you look at it purely from a stats perspective. It just provides a lot of utility in one slot, which is valuable. And in a similar vein, we have Gastrodon, who also has an ability that grants water immunity. Once again, very valuable in this metagame where rain is so dominant. And this one doesn't heal you when you get hit by a water type attack, instead it buffs your special attack. But just the immunity is the most important part. And Gastrodon has the benefit of being also immune to sand and having that excellent water ground typing on top of helping in your matchup into rain against powerful threats like Keldeo. And what's good about Gastrodon too is that it's a decent... Oh yes, you can pick your variant if you want, if you're interested. I think this one looks better, the bluey-greeny. With max defense, you're a pretty solid check to stuff like Garchomp and Dragonite too with Ice Beam, and you can spread status, so you're more useful than just anti-rain technology. Pretty decent defensive Pokemon, just off the back of its typing, and decent move pool as well. A strong choice in the metagame. Gyarados is OU ranked yet again, and it has a new ability Moxie to take advantage of, which raises its attack by 1 stage if it earns a KO. Gyarados yet again a pretty powerful rain abuser, getting boosted damage on Waterfall, and this fantastic new ability allowing it to snowball. In fact, you can even run Choice Scarf Gyarados, so you don't need to boost with Dragon Dance if just KOing an enemy can boost you up anyway. So this is a really cool late game cleaner on rain teams. Vaporeon is also OU by technicality, not a staple of the metagame by any means, but can work on rain teams. It has Hydration, which is an outstanding ability, curing your status at the end of each turn if rain is active, meaning you can use Rest, heal all the way back, and immediately cure your sleep. So you have an instant full heal. Pretty unbelievable. And general status immunity also helps. You can't be toxic or burned or anything. And you can just run this set with Rest, Life Orb, and 3 attacks and be pretty damn threatening, especially with HP Grass to hit those fellas like Gastrodon and Jellicent, those anti-rain fellows. As for lower ranked water types that you sometimes see. Honestly, there are heaps in Gen 5. I could once again be here for hours because rain enables a bunch of different water types to be viable on specific structures. But I think the two most relevant ones would be Seismitoad, who is very similar to Gastrodon, with a couple differences. Seismitoad has Water Absorb rather than Storm Drain, which is a better ability for a defensive utility Pokemon, healing you instead of raising your special attack. So that's a more useful ability, gives it some form of healing in that sense, but it doesn't have Recover, so it has to rely on Protect. But some other moveset advantages you have are access to Stealth Rock, so you can use this as a hazard setter if you don't have one, and you need to compress the role of hazard setter and water type switch in one. And you have Refresh, so you can hold your own against something like a Politoed with Toxic that wants to cripple the incoming water immune fellow. You have some counterplay to that. It also gets Knockoff. It does indeed, which is valuable utility, removing items on important targets. Gastrodon is overall a bit better and easy to fit on teams because it can recover, and it is a bit more solid into stuff that's important to check like Garchomp and Dragonite. But Seismitoad can have its place on specific teams too. And Slowbro got a significant buff in Gen 5, receiving Regenerator, which is among the best abilities in Pokemon. This heals you for 1/3 of your max HP when you switch out. Slowbro, with its solid bulk and access to this move, and now having Scald, immediate healing too, Slowbro fits on stall teams occasionally. And it's a much better Pokemon on the right OU team than its UU rank would suggest. Slowbro can be really, really difficult to break through and be the source of much frustration. In Generation 6, look at all these damn water types. You include Slowbro Mega, there's 8 in OU, Sans Keldeo Resolute, and we've got some new faces in here, don't we? Azumarill in Gen 6 became a water fairy type, which was a significant, but fairy typing is outstanding defensively, with such benefits as fighting resistance, dark resistance, and of course dragon immunity. This made Azumarill much better. I think this is also the first time that it could use Belly Drum and Aqua Jet together. There might have been some illegality with that before. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Azumarill turned into one of the scariest threats in the game now. A very effective Belly Drum user. It has huge power on it, which doubles its attack, of course. And now it has Fairy Stab, helping it hit Dragon types and Fighting types. Volcanion was a new face. Look at this guy. They keep giving water types everything. It has 130 base special attack, Water Absorb, the signature move Steam Eruption, which is Scald but better, with way higher base power. It's got solid coverage options in Flamethrower, Sludge Bomb. This is a great breaker, with a bit of defensive merit as well. It does suck that it's rock weak, that's something, but it's a small price to pay for all these advantages, I would say. Despite Permanent Rain no longer being a thing really, Keldeo is still an OU ranked Pokemon. It's a testament to its inherent strength, doing much the same thing as it did in Gen 5, to be honest, even without Rain to enhance it to great heights. This outstanding offensive and defensive type combination, complementary stab moves that are just tremendous. The ability to spread burn, Keldeo is just excellent. Manaphy is here. Hello Manaphy, OU for once. This guy was Ubers in Gen 4 and 5. Back in Gen 4 I suppose it was just too overwhelming with Tail Glow, which raises special attack by 3. And in Gen 5 of course with Hydration, along with Permanent Rain, that is far too powerful. But in Gen 6, it proved to be a bit more manageable this time around, but still a formidable foe. Tail Glow is one of the best boosting moves in the game, raising special attack by 3. That's quite a bit more than Nasty Plot can manage. 3 boosts in one turn, that's an outstanding deal, and great coverage to boot. A solid base 100 stats across the board, which is more than enough to pose a threat. I even remember people running Rain Dance on it, because Rain Dance allows you to heal status and also boost your surf damage. I recall something like this. I'm not sure how popular that is these days, but that was a tech people used to do before. Slowbro is now an OU ranked Pokemon. Give it up for Slowbro, folks. Actually better in its base form and higher ranked than in its Mega form, mostly because of Regenerator. When you Mega Evolve Slowbro, it loses Regenerator. It gets much better defensive stats, and that can be valuable. You can run Slowbro Knight and just not Mega Evolve if you want for most of the battle, and Mega Evolve on the turn that you need the defense, but it takes away your Mega slot. Of course, you would rather have the leftovers healing most of the time. Same way it operated in Gen 5, but I suppose in this metagame it's a better fit. I mean, it makes sense. There's new threats in here like Mega Lopunny and Mega Charizard X, which Slowbro is actually really good against, and it's also solid against the same stuff as last time, like Landorus Theory and Garchomp. And look at Starmie ranked in OU again. What a superstar. Surely this will continue. Surely you'll be ranked OU for many more years to come. Right, folks? What could go wrong with you, Starmie? What an illustrious career you've had. And look at Mega Gyarados. What a cool Pokemon. UUBL looks like a big shrimp. And when it Mega Evolves, it changes to Water Dark type and it gets Mold Breaker, which ignores enemy abilities. This allows you to break through unaware Pokemon. They can't ignore your boosts if you're ignoring their lack of awareness. You can mold break through Water Absorb with Waterfall. Multi-scale, Ice Fang can break that against Dragonite. Very fun Pokemon. Only ranked in UUBL, not the most relevant presence. There's more valuable Megas to use like Charizard, Metagross, etc. But worth shouting out. Look at all these water types in Gen 7, folks. How many is this? I can't count this many Pokemon. Although, why is there 3 Greninjas? That's not fair. Speaking of Greninja, this is one of the most powerful Pokemon in all of Gen 7 OU. It was Ubers back in Gen 6, now legal. And boy does this thing have set variety. It has one great ability, Protean, changing your type into the type of whatever move you use, meaning you effectively have same type attack bonus on everything. And you can also do some gaming, becoming different types to dodge certain hits. A Greninja sometimes uses this set. This is a crazy one, Ground EMZ with Dig to give you ground coverage. You can also do like Water EMZ like this or other Zs. I saw many different Z moves on Greninja to do many different things back when I played Gen 7, but the more popular Greninja set in this metagame is with the ability Battle Bond. After you KO a Pokemon, you turn into Ash Greninja. Pull up Ash Greninja. So after you KO a fellow, look at you. Ash Greninja has 145 attack, 153 base special attack, and an absurd speed stat. And with the choice specs equipped, guess what? Water Shuriken also always hits 3 times, I believe, and has raised power. Is that correct? Something like that. It basically becomes better. So you have priority on with a massive special attack guy, and you can Hydro Pump everything. And this thing was absurd. This was truly a dominant presence in Gen 7 OU. The most noteworthy new water type in Gen 7 was definitely Tapu Fini in the OU metagame, with its outstanding Water Fairy typing, which is so good defensively, and Misty Surge ability, which summons Misty Terrain on switch in. Misty Terrain grants status immunity to everything grounded for 5 to 8 turns, depending on whether you have Terrain Extender and want to extend it. Not that worth it, but you can. And look at all its incredible options for utility and its excellent stats. Incredible defenses. It's got Defog, it can remove hazards from the field. It's got Scald, which actually can't apply burn to grounded foes, but it can apply burn to flying ones, like Landorus Therian, so that's still useful sometimes. Moonblast, check dragons, and even taunt for some disruption. It's easy to see why this is so good. It ticks so many boxes, shields your entire team from status, by the way, including secondary effects like Scald Burn, no longer a problem. Anything that wants to put you to sleep is going to be useless. Stall teams trying to toxic you, no thanks. You can even run more aggressive Tapu Fini sets. I believe there was a Scarf set, I remember, which was good as well. Crawdaunt is also a Pokemon, one of my favorite wall breakers ever. It has adaptability, a fantastic offensive Water Dark hyping, Knockoff to destroy things, Crab Hammer for a big stab move, Aqua Jet for priority. That's the real key, is that you can threaten Aqua Jet, mind game them on a switch out and hit them with Knockoff unexpectedly. This was also a good choice in Gen 6 OU as a wall breaker. And Pelipper received the enormous buff in Gen 7 of Drizzle, which summons rain on the field, of course. Drizzle's no longer permanent anymore as of Gen 6, but Pelipper is a lot better than Politoed as a Drizzle setter. It's a flying type, it has access to Hurricane, has U-turn, Defog as well for added utility compared to Politoed, and Pelipper receiving Drizzle gave Rain teams a lot of new life. I mean, we mentioned Ash Greninja and Crawdaunt before. Those can be used on Rain teams. With Rain support, they become even scarier. And Mega Swampert became significantly more viable now that Pelipper was a teammate, and this thing is absurdly threatening in the Rain. It has 150 base attack. Insane. Incredible move pool as well with Stealth Rock, just in case you want Stealth Rock. Rain boosted waterfalls, all the coverage you could want. And Kingdra could also be used on these teams with a choice specs and Draco Meteor. Incredible breaker. Could also clean up games with Surf. Rotom Wash is still great here, checking many of the same things you would expect, like Garchomp, Landorus Theory, etc. They started running Wikiberry on it instead of having leftovers, which heals you a little bit over time. This is one big heal, restoring half of your health once when you're lower than a quarter of your max HP, which in the fast-paced metagame of Gen 7 OU was quite strong. You would see this on like Ferrothorn too. I remember this being quite common. I almost forgot to bring up Toxapex, folks, perhaps out of a sense of dread or trauma. But Toxapex is an absolute defensive behemoth in Gen 7. It has Regenerator, which we all know is an incredible ability, healing you for free when you switch out. And it has just an absurd set of defensive and utility options. Look at these stats. They're unreal. And it has Skull. And it has Haze to defeat Boost Sweepers. It has Knockoff as well if you want to remove items for free, which is a lot of fun. It has Toxic Spikes. It has Toxic itself. It's also got Baneful Bunker if you want to protect and apply poison at the same time. Very evil and morally bankrupt Pokemon. that I don't support, but no doubt one of the most powerful Pokemon in Gen 7 OU. And Azumarill is still good, operates a similar way, but you can use Normalium Z now, which is fun, to do Belly Drum Z, and Belly Drum Z will fully heal you and then Belly Drum. So if you've been brought low, you can Belly Drum Z, fully heal, and then halve your health after that, which is interesting. A new tool for Azumarill. There are 7 OU ranked water types in Gen 8, and there's some familiar faces that we should recognize. Pelipper, once again viable with Drizzle to set rain, as you might expect. This can also choose to use heavy duty boots if it wants now, if you prefer being immune to a Stealth Rock over having more rain turns, which can sometimes be worthwhile. Apparently Toxapex runs Shed Shell now, so it doesn't get trapped by Magma Storm Heatran. What a world. And Tapu Fini's still good. Here's the Choice Scarf set I was thinking of. It's got Trick Choice Scarf. A new face in the world of rain abusers was Barraskewda in Gen 8, who has really massive speed and attack. And a new move called Flip Turn, which is a water type pivoting move. So with Choice Band outrunning the entire world and pivoting to keep up momentum while dealing absurd damage in the process, this was a very effective Swift Swim abuser alongside Pelipper. Slowbro got a pretty significant buff. First of all, can now use Boots to completely ignore spikes and Stealth Rock damage, giving it way more longevity. Also, look at this, it got Teleport. It already had it, but now Teleport enables Slowbro to switch out with negative priority, which that was a huge buff to many Pokemon who received this new and improved Teleport in Gen 8. The fact that Teleport has negative priority is really important because you will always take a hit and then switch out, completely granting a safe entry point to anything you want. And I gotta be honest, this is one of my least favorite parts of Gen 8 OU, was all these Teleport pivots that ignore hazards and regen all their health back. I was not a fan of that gameplay, I have to be completely honest, but there's no doubt that it was an incredibly powerful new option available to Slowbro and many others. Volcanion also returned to OU rank, was not OU by usage in Gen 7, but better fit in the Gen 8 metagame as a wall breaker once again. And Urshifu Rapid Strike was a new face. A fantastic new water-type physical attacker with the ability to ignore protection, which is really interesting. Very effective against stall team, and also has access to priority, which is really useful. Oh yeah, and before I forget, shout out to Dracovish, who wreaked havoc in Generation 8 OU for a brief period. This guy had one of the stupidest Pokemon moves ever invented, Vicious Rend. Power doubles if user moves before the target, meaning this has, 170 base power, which is then boosted by Strong Jaw, granting 1.5 times power on top of this. So Dracovish could one-hit KO resistances, everything with this move. It was absolutely unbelievable. I recall having a lot of fun while this was legal for the brief period that it was. But of course, we literally live in 1984, and the Smogon higher-ups removed Dracovish from my hands, purely to spite me, purely to fill me with dread and sorrow. And here we are in the present day of Gen 9 OU with 6 OU ranked water types in the format at present. But remember Palafin? This was once an OU ranked water type. Where did it go? Well, it got banned. This is one of the craziest Pokemon ever built. Palafin has this move right here, Jet Punch, 60 base power water type attack. It's an above average water type priority move. That's not quite insane. Well, Palafin, as soon as it switches out, will transform from its Zero form into its Hero form. Let's take a look at the Hero form. Let's pull that up. It has a base 160 attack stat, along with this incredible Jet Punch, Bulk Up, Drain Punch, Taunt. This Pokemon was absolutely indestructible. It is basically a legendary. And I felt like there was very little counterplay too. Even dedicated counters would kind of lose to this set that just snowballs with Bulk Up and heals with Drain Punch. You can taunt to prevent other such nonsense. This guy was insane. Walking Wake is the new past Paradox form of Suicune, and it is much more aggressive than Suicune was. Water Dragon typing, the ability Photosynthesis, granting it a boost in the sun to its highest stat, which might seem weird, a water type boosted in the sun. Well, Walking Wake has the signature move Hydro Steam, which actually gets buffed in the sun instead of nerfed. It turns the weather mechanics on its head a little bit. A water type move that gets stronger in the sun. This is one of the best Pokemon on sun teams. It's really nice defensive profile, and it can turn defense into offense, switching in nicely with its great defensive typing, and then immediately posing a huge threat. Actually receives a speed boost with this particular set, since you have a higher speed stat than special attack if you customize the EVs just so, with speed and choice specs and Hydro Steam hitting so hard. This is one of the best cleaners on sun teams. Hisuian Samurott is a Pokemon from the Legends Arceus video game that was made available to use in Gen 9 OU after Pokemon Home compatibility released for Legends Arceus. And this is a truly excellent Pokemon, largely because of its ability Sharpness, which increases slicing moves and their power, which you have a lot of, and this move right here, Ceaseless Edge, which attacks and sets a layer of spikes on the field at the same time. Spikes feel a lot better in Gen 9, not only because Goldengo exists as an anti-defog mechanic, but because most rock-weak Pokemon are using heavy-duty boots, so Spikes targets the stuff that doesn't tend to run boots more often. So the ability to deal pretty considerable damage, and Dark type is such a good offensive type, hitting most of the metagame neutrally. And you're setting spikes on the field too, getting permanent pressure and progress from that. It's a no-brainer why this is such a powerful threat. Dondozo is one of the most significant new defensive Pokemon released in Gen 9. Very simple Pokemon, quite limited in its move pool, but has outstanding defensive capabilities. Has the ability Unaware, which is an amazing defensive ability, ignoring enemy stat changes, so if a Roaring Moon is +6/+6, you completely ignore all of their boosts, and they're doing very little damage to you. Because look at your defensive stats, 150 base HP, 115 defense, nothing is touching you. And Water is such a perfect defensive typing, so good neutrally. But as I said before, Dondozo is very limited in its move pool. No recovery, no good status ailments to apply, or like any utility, no hazards, no knockoff or anything. Just has basic attacks. It can Curse Boost, be a win condition sometimes. It has Waterfall. Wave Crash is another option. And Body Press. Those are the main attacks you can use. It has Rest for healing. Very simple moveset, but just a true wall. A true wall in every sense of the word. Ogerpon Wellspring is one of the tier's most powerful Swords Dance sweepers. It has a big stab boosted Ivy Cudgel, which becomes Water type when you're in the Wellspring form. Water Grass is great complementary coverage. It's good offensively and defensively, especially alongside Water Absorb for water immunity. And Play Rough is nice coverage too, to hit dragons fighting in dark types. Ogerpon Wellspring also has such options as Trailblaze if you want to boost your speed, which can help you sweep sometimes, and Spikes. Maybe you want to set hazards, perhaps. It also gets Spiky Shield, which can be useful maybe. Primarina is ranked in OU. Congratulations, Primarina. This Pokemon has always been overshadowed by Tapu Fini, a fellow Water Fairy type with frankly superior defensive utility and options, but now that Tapu Fini no longer exists, Primarina has stepped up to fill its shoes, and it's done a fantastic job. Assault Vest is a great set here, with such great defensive typing. This is very good against stuff like Iron Valiant and Darkrai. You also have Flip Turn for pivoting, which is very useful on an Assault Vest Pokemon. Psychic Noise is also a fun new option on Primarina, which prevents the enemy from healing. And interestingly, if you want to, you can turn this into a Water type attack with Liquid Voice, turning all sound-based moves to Water type, which can be useful if you want to basically replace it with Surf for utility compression. Primarina can also run Calm Mind sets with either Moonblast or Draining Kiss for more longevity and healing. Really solid Pokemon overall. And Quaquaval I thought I would shout out. This Pokemon unfortunately has fallen down to UU. There was a bit of hype surrounding it early on as the new Gen 9 starter with some really fantastic sounding tools. Has Moxie, which we remember from Gyarados, raises your attack by 1 stage if you KO another Pokemon. And this right here, Aqua Step, an 80 base power water move that raises your speed by 1 on hit. So that combination is pretty astounding and sounds like this could be a fantastic snowball threat, especially as it's got Swords Dance and really good coverage in the form of Ice Spinner, close combat for stab. Unfortunately, with its poor bulk and other threats overshadowing it, Quaquaval never maintained its OU position. But in the early metagame I used it myself, I enjoyed it, thought it was quite solid at some stages. In the Chen Pao metagame it felt pretty good because you resist both Ice and Dark, which was useful. In the current metagame though, Quaquaval is not the best, but I give it my respect. So there you have it folks, a water type overview through all the generations, one of the best types historically. Always many examples of viable OU water types, even ones not ranked in OU find a place commonly. It's a type that lends itself to solid competitive success with few weaknesses, and those weaknesses can be covered elsewhere very easily in multiple different ways, making it pretty easy to fit water types on teams. They also seem to be given the best tools. Scald was a big one, and they tend to have complementary coverage like Ice Beam. And now that in Gen 9 you can Terastallize, one of the most common types to Terastallize into is water because it's so good defensively. A lot of Pokemon wish they were water types and transform into them. What do you think of the water type, folks? Are you a fan of it? Are you sick of seeing water types everywhere? Do you want another type to have its day? And who's your favorite water type of all time? Mine is Swampert. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.